Hi, this is Andy Turner, the Education Technologist at Illinois College. Today I wanted to show how we can use Java in order to implement an array so that we can go through an exercise to help prepare us for using a database and an array of objects in Java. Here we have a basic class. There's no main method in this class. This is an object called bike array. And I believe you can think of this class as sort of a server which will reply back, so to speak, with available object templates that can be utilized in order to design instances of object to be delivered to a main program. Usually they call a main program the driver. So here we have essentially a bike factory sort of program, and it says create 3 different bikes, then instantiate these bikes according to these 3 different templates, and these templates are essentially constructor methods. 1, 2, 3, 4 constructor methods in this Java source code file. First, this constructor accepts a string object. In this case we've called it O, and an integer parameter called n. Now when we call this server, so to speak, when we call this class from our main program, in this case we're saying construct a new bike called bikes2 from the bike array class, where the owner name is Billy and the number of wheels is 3. So here this matches up to Billy because that is a string, and this matches up to an integer because it is an integer number 3. So it selects this method for this constructor method. It's assigning the owner name to be what's passed in here from the argument Billy to the parameter string O, and it's assigning that to owner name in this instance of the class. So the next one, let's go down to bikes3. Now this takes an object as a parameter. So it takes this it uses this constructor, and it's saying accept the object, call it B, and then run these methods on it. Now we wouldn't want to make num_wheels a static variable, because then it would be accessible from the rest of the instances, and we wouldn't want to globally set the number of wheels in the factory. We want a basic standard template where the number of wheels is always 2. Otherwise we would put static here if we wanted to accumulate an amount across the different instances, in other words in the class. And we'll get into some some contour diagrams in a subsequent video. So it's taking the bikes1 object, which uses this constructor, where the default owner name is default, the number of wheels is 2, and the default color is orange. And then it sends that into a reference to that to bikes3. So now bikes3 will be assigned a copy of the reference to this object. And now when we run this, we basically say, on the command line we can compile these, and I'm going to run bike main. So bike main, bike1's name info is get owner name of bike1 in this case. Get owner name is an accessor, and it returns the owner name, which is default, because the default constructor calls this constructor that we've defined here calls this one, the other constructor, in other words, because it has the 3 parameters. It calls this one. It has the 3 parameters: the name of the owner, the number of wheels, and the color. So you can have You can override many constructors where you have a different number of parameters, a different order, or different types of parameters. So I've overridden the constructor twice. This is the, I'm sorry, 3 times. This is the implementation where it accepts 3 parameters, which is what I'm calling here. This is just an alias for that. It means between the braces, this, which is that. And when we call that with 3 parameters, it means this. So I'm going to assign the owner name to be O. Again, just to repeat, that is being called with the 3 parameters, default to an orange. So bike main out here has default, the bike's 1 wheels is 2. So that's what we get there. Now I could add here the bike's 1 color. System out parent line bikes 1 color info, and I'm going to call the method get bike color, and I'm going to recompile that. I'm going to save that here in Sublime Text, recompile bike main, and I'm going to run bike main. And now we see that bike's 1 color is in fact orange. Bike's 2 name is Billy. And bike's 2 wheels info is 3. Because in the main I've assigned it Billy and 3. Because it has the 2 arguments, it's being instantiated from the constructor here, which takes the 2 arguments into these parameters, these 2 parameters. Lastly, we have bikes 3. And we can see that bikes 3 name info is default, the wheels info is 2, and then if I were to get the color down here, that would also be orange. Parent line bikes 3 color info bikes 3 dot get bike color. Save that, recompile that. Didn't like this, my mistake. Try that again. There we are. Now if we run the bike main program, we see that bike's 3 color is null. So the bike 3 color info does not have a color. Bike's 1 color is orange. Oh. Well, we'll come back to that. Bike's 3 info for the color should be orange as well. Oh, I typed the wrong. Okay, a little troubleshooting there. Now it will show, I'll recompile, and now it should show the bike's 3 color is orange. Okay, good. Typo there. Alright. Next, I'm going to integrate arrays into this construct so that I can essentially paint the bike templates into a different color. I'm going to change bike array 2. So I'm going to create a new series of bikes. And this series of bikes is based on the default. Remember, bike array is the factory. It's the server. It gives back new bikes. And when I call into that constructor with no arguments, I'm calling this constructor, my custom default constructor. And the default has 2 wheels and it's orange. So let's go ahead and run bike array main. And we can see that bike array 2 has owner name default, num wheels 2, and color orange. And that's correct. We're just looking at the first line here. Just this line. Next, I'm going to paint the bike to a different color. I'm going to use arrays to do that. I'm going to have sort of an assembly line here where I've got different paint cans that a robot will go to. We have a paint can in position 0, paint can in position 1, and position 2. You know, the robot can only find things in certain positions. It is just that robotic. Now I have another array of colors where in those positions I've defined what colors are in those paint cans. So I've decided here that I'm going to call a method on the object called setBikeColor, and I've defined that here, setBikeColor, and it accepts a string argument into this parameter called stringColor, and it defines this instance's bike color as the color that was received through this parameter and from this argument. I say the color's 0 is red. And using paint can number color ID sub 0 is 0. So I'm saying the color ID sub 0 is 0, and I'm painting the bike the colors correspondingly 0 to red, and that's why we have this here using paint can number 0. It comes from here, color ID 0, which is the 0th position. Bike array 2 is now the color red because I'm calling it, I've painted it red using this method, colors sub 0, which is red. Bike array 2 is now the color red. Another thing I can do is say colors 0, or I can change it so that I'm telling the robot different commands. For example, color ID sub 2. So now, what color will the bike be after the robot paints it? It should be blue, because color ID sub 2 is 2. So 2 will go into here, it'll replace all this with just 2, and colors sub 2 is blue. Let's test it. Let's recompile bike array main. And we'll run it. Using paint can number, oh, I forgot to update my code here. Recompile real quick. Rerun it. Alright. Using paint can number 2, color ID sub 2 is number 2. Bike array 2 is now the color blue. So just by changing this, I can get a whole new model of bike and give it a different owner name, even change the number of wheels. Let's do that as a last exercise. Plus bike array 2 dot get num wheels with num wheels let's set the number of wheels to be 4. This will be a very comfortable bike. Set num wheels to 4. Have I implemented that? We'll save that. Have I implemented that method? Yes. Set num wheels It accepts an integer and it assigns the number of wheels on this instance, like so. And then I'm getting the number of wheels from bike array 2, and I've set it here. Let's say change number of wheels. Save that, recompile it. Java C bike array main.java. Just compiling on a command line here to save a little time. Java bike array main. Okay. Using paint can number 2, bike array 2 is now the color blue with num wheels 4. Num wheels 4. Good, that worked. Hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, please request access to the Canvas course, and I will help you with arrays in Java. Again, this is an exercise for learning how to use real data in a database using arrays. Next time we'll look at some contours. We'll find out how to persist out a text file, turn this array that's in memory right now into a text file, because as soon as I close this program, this cannot be recreated until you rerun the program. So we'll have to write that to a file in case you wanted to print an invoice, for example, or a report. Thanks a lot, and have a great night.